I'm here with Ivan Diaz, who's running for state senate in District 29 here in West Michigan. Ivan, what are the main priorities that you have when you win this election?
Yeah, I'm very much focused on economic issues, raising wages for people, lowering costs for them, making sure that we have a government that's working for everyday working class people and not the rich elite. We have a lot of examples that have happened in the state legislature in Lansing the last couple of years that demonstrate that we have a lot of work to do, not just in improving the economic well-being of working class people, but also in rooting out corruption. And so raising wages, lowering housing, healthcare, and education costs, those will be my top priorities.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of West Michigan?
To me, having been born and raised and lived my entire life here, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about West Michigan is the fact that we've got regular working class, down-to-earth people who call West Michigan home. It's people who you can have a conversation with, whether you're walking downtown in downtown Grand Rapids, or working in Burton, or walking down Burton Heights, or walking anywhere in the district in Kentwood and Wyoming. And so, having been born and raised here, I feel very comfortable going up to anybody and striking up a conversation. And I think that that's something that you can't necessarily do in every part of the country.
Ivan, what are your go-to food joints or restaurants in District 29?
It really depends on the time of day and what I'm feeling. Some of these may be just outside the district limits, but I'm thinking of places like Yesterdog around the East Town area, Vito's Pizza on the west side, the Chinese Buffet on 28th Street in Rogers Plaza, New China around the Madison Square area, and then also some Mexican spots like La Guadalupana on Division, La Favorita also on Division, Garibaldi also on Division. You might see a trend here. Let's see, one more. Tacos o Caldos El Giro, also on Division, in the Division and 36th Street area. Just depends on what I'm feeling, the time of day, and whether I'm coming back from a night out or not.
Ivan, as you know, a 2023 study found that Grand Rapids in Kent County is short about 35,000 housing units, and 1 in 3 residents here can't afford housing. So what would you do as state senator to help address this issue?
Yeah, this housing is probably the number one issue that people talk to me about. As you mentioned, we're over 30,000 housing units short throughout the county, and we're falling further and further behind every year. So while we are bringing new units online every year, it's nowhere near the amount that we need. And so I really see this as having two main buckets of solutions. One is we need to stabilize the people who already have housing, and two, we need to do everything we can to bring new units online. So the first bucket is stabilizing the people who already have housing or who are going to be going into housing very soon. We need to be able to freeze the rent of people who are currently renting until we bring online those 35,000 new housing units that we need to build. And so one of the main priorities that I will have in the state legislature as the next state senator for District 29 is removing the statewide ban on rent control. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna force rent control on Wyoming and Kentwood and Grand Rapids and Detroit and everybody else. It just simply means that by removing the statewide ban on rent control, individual communities can vote and lobby their city commissioners or county commissioners or township commissioners on implementing rent control. And that way, individual municipalities like Kentwood, Wyoming, East Grand Rapids, Grandville, individual municipalities can decide whether or not it makes sense for them to pass a rent control ordinance. We also need to make sure that we're lowering costs for people who are already housed. And that's whether we're talking about insurance costs or property taxes or hidden costs like utility payments, escrow payments if people have a mortgage. We need to lower costs for people. And so, for example, our electric costs since 2020 have gone up by 20-something, almost 30%. In my view, by having utility companies like DTE and consumers whose main responsibility is to make money for shareholders, that creates a profit incentive that makes corporations like DTE and consumers raise our costs just so that they can turn around and pay their CEOs tens of millions of dollars in salaries that come from our dollars every month. Or so that they can lobby legislators to continue that broken system. And so we need to stabilize housing costs, and that's one of the main things that we can do. We also need to build more housing. And so I think we need to modernize our codes, our regulations, so that we incentivize the private market to build more housing. But frankly, the housing market is prioritizing housing units for higher income earners. And so I think our tax dollars should be invested in creating public housing. And so if the private market is not going to step in to create the housing units that we need, which is basically what's happening now, as we mentioned at the beginning, we're short tens of thousands of housing units. If the private market is not going to do its job by creating these units, then the government needs to step in to create public housing.
Definitely.
We have seen examples of that working throughout the country, and we have learned from mistakes and incomplete policies from the past. And so, again, we need to lower costs and we need to build more housing.
Ivan, what is the main problems that you see with political leaders today?
I would say it's the fact that voters or working class people generally don't trust our political leadership, many of them. And I think that's because we have seen generations now, decades, of failed political leadership, of leaders, frankly, like Trump and like our opponent, the other candidate in this race, who treat people so badly and create such a bad reputation for themselves that it makes governing nearly impossible. And I think people, voters, the people of District 29 are clamoring now for something different. They don't want a leader who's going to mistreat women or minorities or anybody else. Politics is not about attacking and bringing people down. Politics is supposed to be about building a better future, a better world for everyone. And so if we can't trust our political leaders to be kind, to be courageous, to be somebody who you would want to introduce your family to, somebody who you would want to invite to the cookout or to the barbecue, why would we send them to Lansing, to DC, or anywhere else to represent us? And so I believe, and most importantly, I think the people believe, that it's time for something different.
How can people support your campaign?
That's a great question. This is really the time when the consultants would tell me that I'm supposed to fundraise and ask people for dollars. But what would really help the campaign is just helping us spread our message to the entire district. And people can donate if that's what they can do, if they have the funds available to do so. But what would really help us even more than donating $5, $10, $15, $20 is helping us spread our message. So people can do that by going to voteivandiaz.com, sharing our website. They can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, sharing our social media posts. And most importantly than that, they can talk to their family and friends about our campaign and convince their loved ones to register to vote if they haven't registered already, and to check us out and to make a voting plan to vote on August 4th of next year. By making sure that the working class is aware of the campaign and movement that we're trying to build, we can start working together to actually ensure that these policies and that these changes are put into effect.
So Ivan, when is the election and which parts of West Michigan will you represent? Where are the boundaries at in the district?
Yeah, so the election is on August 4th, 2026, so we're about 9 months away. And the district covers the south side of Grand Rapids, south of downtown, south of Fulton. It covers Grandville, East Grand Rapids, Wyoming, Kentwood, and a small part of Cascade. And so you can think of it, if you look it up, as a rectangle. The northern edge is the downtown area. The southern edge is just north of 96. The eastern boundary is Patterson, just west of the Ford Airport. And the western edge boundary runs down from the Grand River down to where Grandville becomes Jenison, that area. And so it's one of the most compact legislative districts around the state, but it's also one of the most diverse districts. It's about 50-50, 50% white, 50% minorities, and it's a very young district. The median age is less than 34 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm going to be turning 29 next year, so I'm right kind of in that middle age area of the population of the district.